What's good, everyone? This is Chris Crazy House, and I want to talk a little bit about the controversy that's going on with the new version of Dune 2020 and how they've cast a black female to be the character Dr. Kynes in the movie. So, first, let me say, uh, I've seen some of the other popular YouTubers talk about this, as far as the ones that talk about pop culture, and this goes back to what one of my subs actually told me a couple of weeks ago, where they said that they enjoy me talking about pop culture and genre movies and sci-fi and fantasy because I can do it from a black person's perspective. And sometimes that when he tries to watch these videos done by white YouTubers, sometimes they descend into a little bit of uh, bigotry, I guess you could say. So let's talk about this a little bit, because I've seen some people are upset about this and accusing the entire production of this new Dune movie of being woke or trying to be social justice warriors or whatever, right? By putting a black woman in this role. Now, the original character in the book is a man, and in the original version that was done by David Lynch, Dr. Kynes was played by Max von Sydow, who's a white male who just recently passed away, so rest in peace. And the I think the Sci-Fi Channel version, I can't remember what the actor's name was, but I think he's a European actor, even though they kind of darkened his skin a little bit to make him look a little bit more like he came from the Middle East or something like that. So that the character is in the books obviously a man, and he is also so basically what Dr. Kynes is. Let me try to explain it the best I can for those who have never read Dune. Dr. Kynes is the planetologist for the Empire. So he goes there to the planet of Arrakis, and he's kind of overseeing things for the Empire. He's also in charge of the transition from the Arrakis being controlled by the Harkonnens and turning it over to the Atreides house. So that's his official capacity. But secretly, and only known to the Fremen, Dr. Kynes is actually the leader, or I guess you could say almost like a spiritual prophet of the Fremen at this time. And like I said, the Empire does not know this. They think he's just a plain old scientist, but he has been mixing and mingling with the Fremen to the point where he even has a Fremen child, or half Fremen child, which is Cheney. And that's the one that becomes the concubine of the main character, Paul Atreides, later on. So Dr. Kynes, and he's known as Liet amongst the Fremen. So it's almost kind of like, if you can put it in a religious context, Dr. Kynes is almost kind of like John the Baptist, the prophet that came before Jesus Christ. So it's almost kind of like that. That's one of the easiest way to describe it to people who are familiar with the Christian religion. Obviously, there's other parallels with other religions because Frank Herbert mixes and mingles a lot of religious ideals and text in there, but that's the most obvious one for anyone who's looking for a comparison. But in this new version, they showed some of the pictures, and they showed that there's a black female actress playing Dr. Kynes. So already, just by changing the gender, I guess that kind of changes things. In my humble opinion, I don't think that's going to change the character. And normally, while I do not agree with tokenism, as you can see in a video that I released earlier about this new Black Prince for Disney, I do not go for gender bending or race bending characters. But in this regard, I don't think it's a big deal. And the reason I don't think it's a big deal because it's while Dr. Kynes at some point is somewhat important, he's not a main character to the point. I mean, anyone who's seen the original Dune series and also reads the books knows that his character dies fairly early on in the story, to the point where you almost forget about him if you're not someone who's a fan of if you're just someone who's casually watching it. Okay, so like I don't think that it'll be that big of a deal having this as a black female character. In some ways, it might actually work to the benefit only because within the book series, and you can see a little bit of it in the Sci-Fi Channel version of Dune, that Dr. Kynes is kind of looked down upon by the other houses as well as some people in the Imperium. They even refer to him as a mongrel and someone who involves himself in uh, slumming it, almost like he's because some people suspect that he's gone native and he messes around with Fremen and stuff like that. So people kind of look down upon him for that. So him being a black female and being looked down upon, even though she's a high ranking professional, is not that absurd or out of the ordinary for me to believe as far as someone watching this. Okay, because there are plenty of black females who are professionals and who might have high rank but get absolutely no respect by their peers or the people who would normally respect someone in that high position just based on how they look down upon them. So I don't have a problem with that. Also, I think in this vast universe that is supposed to be the future of humanity, that's what Dune is supposed to represent. To actually, for me to sit there and think that there are no black people or no black women at all in this universe is be hard for me to believe. Okay, I believe that a lot of the characters, the side characters and the odd characters, are a little bit more. You got a little bit more room and leeway to change them a little bit for the film version. I don't think it's going to hurt at all. Now, if they had made like Paul Atreides or his father black, I can understand people being upset, but a somewhat minor character like Dr. Kynes is not that big of a deal. Now, someone has brought to my attention that said that this could not be possible because the Fremen are a harshly patriarchal society and they would never let a woman take or be their leader in that regard, right? And I said, well, that's okay because Dr. Kynes was not their leader. He was more of a prophet and more of a spiritual type leader, and the women do fit into the spiritual nature of the Fremen. I kind of disagree with people calling it a patriarchal society. Yeah, there's a definite divide, but you see that women have a high amount of respect when you look at some of the Reverend Mothers within the Fremen Society. Okay, they hold them in high regard. They even hold Jessica in high regard once they accept Paul as their Messiah and their leader. They start holding the character Jessica in high regard. So it's not that big of a deal. And I think even they do train women to fight when need be. So it's not such a harsh. It's not like the way this person was describing it to me. He almost made it sound like the Fremen were almost kind of more like Arabs, and I guess that could be the somewhat comparison. But he's almost making them sound like they're not exactly like the Muslim extremists that you see here on Earth. Okay, so they're not that extreme to where they would not let a woman hold such high positions. So that's been the whole argument I've seen in people trying to justify their argument anyway as to why a black woman cannot be Dr. Kynes. And then people were saying, well, then it changes the whole idea of Cheney being his daughter, but I guess it could just still be her daughter. And from what I understand, they said they might make Stilgar Cheney's father, so that Dr. Kynes and Stilgar had a relationship and they had Cheney as their child. So even that, like I said, that's minor. I don't know. Like I said, I have not seen the movie. I have not read the script, so I can't tell you how significant this change will make it. But if they follow the story as it is in the books, this is not that big of a change. You're literally just changing the race and the gender of the character. The character's still going to die, and if she dies like the character dies in the book, she dies pretty horribly, in my opinion. I mean, being left out in the desert with no still suit and no way to save yourself, and dying out in the desert delirious and starved and dehydrated. It's not a good way to die, and not really a way I want to see the death of a black woman on screen. But like I said, that's why I would not let people get too. I'm not exactly happy about that it's a black woman, but I'm also not hurt, or I think it's going to hurt the story that if a black woman is going to play Dr. Kynes. So you folks let me know how you feel about it in the comments section. And if you agree that this is a terrible decision, that this makes the entire production woke and progressive and you don't want to go see it now, or if you're like me and just see it as a movie and you don't see it as anything that big of a deal. Because like I said, yeah, I agree. I don't like race bending. I don't like gender bending in movies, but this is one of those instances where I think it's not that big of a deal. I felt the same way about Idris Elba playing Heimdall in the Thor movies. He was not that as big of a deal of a character that it was that, it didn't matter. And people wound up liking his character anyway. So you guys let me know how you feel about it in the comments section. Anyway, Chris Crazy House signing out. Peace.